it's a difference, like what works in for example in Blazing Dark. So if I'm rolling for the full situation, and whether there were some like I could use some assets, I could do something, I prepared or I didn't prepare, but after all this, if I'm rolling to steal the ghost bottle from those mercenaries, like on my last session, we are doing it, and if I do it, I have the bottle, and if I fail, the GM will tell me what happened, and I probably won't like it.
Right. There's
Yeah,
some,
and
yeah,
it's like there's like some options, like if you
right,
fail, something or something or something
right,
happens, and it's kinda narrowed
right.
and suggested by the text.
There are some weird positive and negative versions of that. I know that when I was reading and playing for a long time, that's what I dreamed of. I didn't want the rules to tell me exactly what happened on the failure. I wanted to have some aesthetic or narrative, plot oriented standard by which to proceed. Um, whereas, whereas there is also something which I'm sure will be brought up by somebody, so I might as well do it, which is the difficulty of what I guess you can call the 7 to 9 problem in many Powered by the Apocalypse games, which I've been
Yeah.
talking about a bit lately. The 7 to 9 problem basically says or gives a person at the table the option, and they often take it, to complicate the situation in a way that is a real kind of pain in the ass. It's sort of like for the fiction. So there you are fighting the way you're beset by foes, and you get a 7 to 9, and it says either take a point of damage or a mysterious figure is watching you or something like that, right? And of course, the player has to go and pick the most baroque option possible. And all of a sudden, the game master has to suddenly come up with a mysterious figure who's watching the situation. And it adds a whole bunch of complication. And so the criticism is that instead of working with the available fiction and picking the thing that makes a lot of sense, which is that one of your foes clips you and gives you some damage, you say something else that just makes the situation and the whole resolution of the action you were attempting to do often gets lost. This happens a lot in Monster Hearts. You
Yeah,
fail,
complication,
yeah, you
the
fail,
complication become
they
more
take a
important.
string on you, and so then, but you don't know what happened in the fiction. Did you hit him or not? Right?
Yeah.
So that in that narration, which you think would be put in there, will get missed.
I think another peculiarity of this 7 to 9 problem is that I think that can be a very good solution for the large scale problems. I mean, when I can't get the door open,
Right.
and so yeah, that's useful there. But you get it for everything. So
Right.
there are a lot of small situations where you wouldn't need, where failure is really clear.
Right.
You don't need to mediate it because not all situations are equal. And I think it's interesting that Alexandra mentioned the charm roll in Circle of End, because I think it's meaningful in this, because it's one roll that when you fail, you never have any issue with the failure. Because I think an important part of this is that there is basically no load of information before the roll. You're not confirming anything. You are saying
right. This
from
is how
now
it works
on,
out. Yeah.
yeah, from now on,
It's almost more of
this
a
is how.
framing role than a skill role.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe failure is kind of a big word, but
Well,
it's still a failure
it
because
is a
you can
failure,
be
and it's
good
based on your
at it.
charm. I mean, a person who's more charming gets along better more of the time.
Yeah, Yeah,
But
exactly.
the other important point about it, though, is that it's tied to the very specific setting. This is a
Yeah.
harsh, suspicious culture,
Yeah.
and people have a tendency to pick their allies and enemies very quickly, and it's almost a psychological comment of mine in the design
Mm.
that says that people tend to, instead of actually perceiving anything, they tend to project.
Yeah.
They tend to
And
project, and that's the nature of the culture, is projecting alliance and enemies onto others, especially because you're a whole bunch of scary looking badasses with the circle emblem on your chests, right?
yeah.
They're going to project stuff onto you.
And I was kind of
Go
going
ahead.
to
Yeah.
get there because I think it's very important to understand that the concept of failure is really tied to what you are playing. You mentioned before that we all struggled a lot with the investigation roles historically. And then at some point I was sitting and thinking, why do we struggle with that? And I started to figure out let's design the simplest game I can imagine about this. The players are playing a team of investigators, they play the police, and the bad guy is a serial killer. So if the players fail, it's really simple.
He kills
The serial
someone
killer,
else. Right.
yeah, he makes a new victim, and we begin a new investigation. It's really natural if you think about it. So the problem isn't that the failure is going to make the fiction crash. The problem needs to be elsewhere. It needs to be with our expectations, with what we do. And another thing, I'm sorry if I'm throwing a lot of stuff
This
together.
is interesting. Go ahead. Yeah.
But another thing that I find interesting in looking at, I mean, this resonated with me when I was rereading Trollbabe when I was working on that thing, you know, and because it made me think of what I was doing, writing my own stuff, and there is the examples about the checks, and if you notice in the text. You go a very long way describing the failures. The failures are really interesting. The failures produce stuff. There is never a moment where you look at the guy, the play stopping because, well, at some point it will. But when there is the example of the troll maybe trying to stop this guy from killing a troll, I think. And the rolls get her a long way. A lot of stuff happens, and weapons are lost. She crosses the river,
right?
And I think that is because we are not afraid. You have to enter a mindset where you are not afraid of saying no. And my reflection, starting from the charm roll, is that this is a lot easier if you don't preload a lot of expectation before the roll. If you don't overload the fiction with I'm going to do this, and that, and he's there, and this is.
It's the game master about overloading too, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
you're
mostly overloading the whole plot of your scenario on them figuring this thing out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so sooner or later, after and of course that leads to a certain brand of railroading I've talked about for a long time, where it doesn't matter if they succeed or fail; they succeed when you say they do.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so, So wait, we got a bunch of people talking. Alexandra waited a bit ago, and then Alan, I think.
Okay. So I want to add something to the 7-9 problem.
Also, Alexandra, you're frozen.
I can't do anything about this. Wait a second.
It's not from me.
It works. Does it work?
If you turn your camera on and off.
Okay.
I mean, right here in Discord, not your actual physical camera. There we go. Okay.
Is it better?
Yes.
Okay.
As the person recording, it was necessary for my screen, not everyone else's.
So.
Sure. So 7 to 9. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So for 7-9, I feel like it's I will call it a design problem, like something that is common among like a thing in Apocalypse World, and especially second edition, is that the roles are set. Like as a player, I say what my character does, and GM tells me what it costs me, because
Right.
GM controls the environment and the opponents and what else. So when the design goes like, okay, I can choose like anything as a player.
Right. Right. Oh, wait. Now it's me. Everybody? Anybody?
Yeah, I have a feeling Discord is acting up today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but so then you're talking about how when the player has this wide range of options on, for
Yes.
example, 7 or 9, then
I
things
mean-
get squirrely. Yeah.
I mean, the a bunch of things are broken. Like, the initial authority is like, the authority spread is mixed. Like, now suddenly the player controls what's available to him or her. Suddenly the principle about talking hiding before players that it's not the fiction, or like making an illusion that everything flows from the fiction, is hard to maintain, because the player actually chooses what will happen.
Right. It's
So
right.
I would say
agree.
that this
Yeah.
kind of a move, I saw it's common, but it's a design flaw when someone also says like, oh, maintain the illusion that everything flows from the fiction.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I know
Yeah.
it's kind of
I
seducing.
disagree with part of this.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to talk.
It's
I
not
want
on
you
top-
guys to unpack this and see where we get.
I think
So,
it's not on topic right now, but your turn.
Sorry.
Well,
Go ahead, Alan. Yeah.
You're talking about the player having authority by declaring what they're going to do, and I know from both the Apocalypse World rules and the Dungeon World that the GM can arbitrarily make a move that says you can't do that. It also has a rule where you're supposed to be honest with the players, and the third rule that comes to mind is warn the player what's going to happen if they try that.
Right.
So
You're right,
yeah.
but if the move says, let's say the GM says, "Oh, you can do this," but the move tells me that I can, and suddenly we are like, it's kind
the
of
GM makes the decision about whether a move is triggered.
Right.
In my
again,
interpretation of the rule.
But again, in the table, this gets lost.
Mm,
And you're
I'll
in the
agree to
position
that.
of waving the
I
text
will
around,
agree
and the player
completely
saying,
with that.
"Screw you."
Yeah.
So-
Right. That's not how I
Okay.
learned it. Right.
there is
Right.
a move called hack and slash, and it literally says, "Oh, if I have 7-9, I can push myself," and I don't remember. It's like I can.
You have to roll a 10 plus to get the choice
Yes.
that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And giving me this choice by the move means that I can do something, but the GM has to produce the consequences
Right.
suddenly, even if they didn't exist previously in the fiction. As if me choosing something brings the consequences on myself. So the
Boy, it's like a whole freaking. Never mind. But just from my point of view, it just sounds exhausting. That's my problem.
I
with it.
mean-
It's
Yeah,
exhausting.
there's this kind of freeze frame. What Alexander, what you're talking about, actually shows up more often on 7 to 9 results, particularly in Dungeon World, where you're asked to give the player a choice between getting what they want or or getting what they want with some kind of consequence, or, making a meaningful choice. And when that happens, it's kind of like you're in a freeze frame where you actually haven't resolved the action until they make that choice.
And it wouldn't be so bad if it didn't happen all the time. I mean, that's the core problem for me.
It happens so often. That's
Okay,
one of my
so
frustrations
Alexandra,
running
again,
the game.